Hold on. My LinkedIn is.
Well, it says we're live.
Yeah, we're live on Facebook and YouTube, and not on LinkedIn, which is the main platform.
But hello to everybody on YouTube and
Hello, everybody on
Facebook.
YouTube. Exactly. Oh my gosh. There you go. I think with everything technology, we will get there.
We will.
All right. Well, I think we're live now on all the right platforms. Hello,
Wonderful.
everyone. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to another edition of the ERG Resource Sessions. I love hosting these conversations, bringing in experts, bringing in founders, bringing in thought leaders around different topics that ties to inclusive workplaces. And there are so many of that because there are so many aspects of these conversations that we don't get to dive into too much. But today we're going to be talking about caregiving as a topic itself. And of course, you might see caregiven as a platform as well. I will let Candice clarify the difference, but our conversation today is focused around the theme of caregiving and how it ties into the workplace, why it's important, and some of the ways that internal advocates can continue to champion this conversation. So my name is Lola Adeyemo. I'm your host. I'm a management consultant focused specifically on employee resource groups. I also have a nonprofit called Immigrants Incorporate Inc. that focuses efforts on supporting the immigrant niche, the immigrant population, and helping them achieve success, find community in the workplace. And I'm excited to be here. Candice, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Candice Smith, and I am the founder and director of CareGiven, which is a mobile app and platform that supports the caregiver, the individual who is providing some form of support, physical, financial, emotional, social, to another adult. And the type of caregiving that I think we're going to be talking about today is that I'm caring for a peer, I'm caring for an adult child with a disability, I'm caring for an elder, which is my journey. My first career was in university administration. And my dad got sick. My father was my person. And as I was going through this experience, being a daughter, caring for, in my circumstances, a dying father, there was no normalization of that experience. There were no resources to help me understand that all that I was going through, others had gone through. And so after my dad passed, I felt it necessary to create a solution in the workforce and in society that really addressed this issue, that said it's okay to have bad daughter moments. It's okay for your dad to be grumpy because he's dying. And it's okay to quit your job if you want to become a caregiver, or to stay in your job while you're caregiving, and that you can do it both. So that's what led to the founding of CareGiven. It's interesting when you asked the name. My daughter and I driving to school or work for her this morning, I wanted the name of the product to tell what the product does. And our goal is to give care to the individual that is rising to the challenge of providing care for another adult. And so that's the name of the company.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. I love that. And I love that. I always love to humanize some of these. I know everyone has an experience onto the why. And thank you for sharing that, your own path and journey to providing resources for people that are caregiving. So so I know beyond the product that you have so much passion around this topic of caregiving in the workplace. And I think the first part is really to share some data or talk to us about why caregiving as a topic is very relevant and timely for us to be having right now, especially as it relates to the workplace. Do you want to share some background for us around that?
Absolutely. There's some wonderful statistics out there. Nearly half of the American population is either providing some form of care to another adult, or they are the recipients of that care. We also know that the majority of individuals who are caregiving work 37 and a half hours per week outside the home, and they work that same amount when they come home at night and go over to their parents' house to get things in order. So it is very much a situation not empowered, but that is increasing in frequency because of the baby boomer population.
Right.
So that silver tsunami that we're going to get in 2030, when you have a whole population that's 65 and older, we know care needs correlate with age. We know people are living longer and outliving their financial resources and become more dependent on others. All of that compounds on the workers, whether they be an hourly worker or the CEO of a company. You're carrying that with you into your workforce. And so that is why it is a hot topic right now. It is even more of a hot topic because the pandemic and leaders like Melinda French Gates really identified the impact of informal caregiving or not professional caregiving on women and women in the workplace. She has elevated this topic, and people are like, yeah, absolutely. My mom is unwell, or my mom is a recent widow and I worry about her. And somebody 4 cubes over might be caring for their mom, and there's no synergy there. And you're in your little silo thinking, how do I do this? But the workplace can foster connection. It can foster just, again, normalizing this most human of experiences.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. We only have 30 minutes, so we can dive into these. At the end of the conversation, in the comment, I'll make sure to share some links around some of the metrics around this. But also, can you expand a little bit more on caregiving? So I know I've hosted conversations around, parenting in the workplace, mothers in the workplace, right? But caregiving itself goes beyond just caring for kids. And I think, can you speak to that other aspect of caregiving beyond caring for minors?
Yes. Well, so whenever I speak with a live audience, I always typically ask, how many of you have at any point in your career cared for a child, a minor child, whether they're your child and you get 60 to 70% of the audience will raise their hands. And then I'll say, how many of you have provided some form of care to another adult, like a parent, or have parents that you're worried about, or siblings? And you get 100% of the audience raising their hands. And there are stats out there that almost 70% of all family support benefits in the workplace are skewed towards parents of minor children. Well, as we just saw, the vast majority of us are caring for another adult. And it's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges, because the emotional strain of caring for another adult. And I clarify this because adults can make their own decisions. Adults have legal independence. Often, if you're caring for a parent or a peer, you've got those relational dynamics of trying to encourage people to make decisions about their own well-being, which is a very different experience than deciding whether or not to have your child go to a speech therapist, right? You get to decide that, and the child gets to go. If your parent doesn't want to go to physical therapy after her fall, that is very, very different. And so, and it is a human experience that has just not been recognized. But because the people are living longer, they're retired longer, you have multi-generations of caring for people. And that comes at a cost. And that manifests as absenteeism, presenteeism, and turnover, all of those things that HR and benefits managers are really focused on. So setting those stats aside, there's such a tremendous opportunity to create relationships and community around this shared experience of, it is tough to come to work every day wondering, what's happening in the home with my grandma. And then people can share their their lived experience. They can share their advice. And because caregiving isn't, it's not obvious, right? It's not a cultural thing that's obvious. It's not a race thing. It's all of us. It really is important to create opportunities for people just to converse.
Yeah. And I think it's also relevant now the reason why these conversations are not just conversation is a learning opportunity for those that are in these positions, making decisions about what should we offer as an organization. As you said, when you use, there are different niches to this conversation, right? We're not saying it's not important to talk about mothers and fathers and parents, but we're saying the scope of caregiving is beyond that. So as an employer, if you're putting together benefits, just understanding that it's more than just one niche. There are different categories of people, and different seasons will need different support. So how are you thinking of supporting them in the different seasons with exactly what they need?
Yeah, exactly. You almost have this, you have employees who are caring for children, minor children. You have employees who are caring for adults. And then you have the sandwich generation, which is getting a lot of attention right now. That is the worker who is caring for minor children and has an adult parent or an elder that they, again, are providing some form of care for. And I do want to just clarify that when I talk about care, I'm not talking about nursing necessarily. I'm talking about maybe picking up prescriptions or going into the home and making sure it's safe so that grandma doesn't slip and fall. There are so many different variables of how caregiving manifests. The base of it is that intellectual burden of concern for this person. And so it's those things that show up to work every day that are important enough to address individually. It's just like mental health. Mental health is a whole issue, and we all need to commit to providing mental health resources. Yeah, that was 5 years ago. Now it's like, we've got a loneliness epidemic. How do we combat loneliness in the workforce, which is a contributor to the mental health epidemic? Caregiving itself, the loss of a loved one or a loss of somebody in your life contributes to the mental health epidemic because, long-term depression and complicated grief. And so, it's all woven together. But the experiences are, when you untangle them, there are so many shared experiences that can bring people together.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about things, we can create awareness at a high level, but when it comes to solutioning, we really have to drill down to each of these areas to make sure that people have what they need when they need it.
Absolutely. And so the solutioning is fascinating, right? It has taken our society a long time to realize that providing solutions to help working parents is an opportunity for employers to help working parents. Now we're seeing this great opportunity for an employer to provide support and products, opportunities for workers who are caring for other adults. And the solutions, there are wonderful solutions that run the entire framework. You have solutions that are in an EAP. So low cost, your EAP may have a resource out there that helps specifically caregivers for another adult. You'll have organizations like even Noom, the weight loss app, is getting into caregiving and helping caregivers because of the physical impact of caregiving on individuals. And then you go all the way through a spectrum of, you have digital only solutions like CareGiven, like Avonlea, and then hybrid solutions like CareLoop and Wealthy that offer a human care coach as well as a tech platform. And then, at the premium end, you have a human who is going to help you navigate this journey. And those are available to employers in 1,000 different ways, whether it's through an EAP, a voluntary benefit, or a group sponsored benefit. But I do think, my recommendation would be to any HR person is start with an ERG, hear what people are actually needing. Do they need human care coaches, or do they just want a support tool or a venue to communicate? I think that listening, providing space to acknowledge the importance of the impact of caring for another adult is so vital. And then B, hearing what the unique needs are for your demographic of employees will then lead to what type of resources are out there. Because your employer, you can't take somebody who's working on a machinery line and assume that they're going to need the same type of resources that an accountant would be during, peak audit season, or a restaurant worker or a professional. That's the other thing that I think is really super important is often, and we think about this with immigrants and new cultures coming in, that people make assumptions around caregivers. They assume that it is the hourly worker that is most impacted because she can't make her shift because she has to take care of grandma. I actually was the perfect demographic. When my dad got sick, I was in my mid-40s, college educated, owned my own home, had ample resources. That is the average person who is caregiving. And when employers look at who is leaving their profession to be a caregiver, 60% of those are supervisors and senior managers. They have the financial ability to leave their job. And so that thus is impacting your DEI. Where are all the women in leadership positions? Well, they've left to take care of their mom or dad because they weren't given the option to do both.
Right. No, I love that you shared that. There is assumptions around when it comes to caregiving. We always assume that we know who needs this support or we know who has this role. But again, it's understanding that every one of us at some point or the other will have to do one of these roles, even if it's for a friend or a sister or a sibling.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be your older parents, right? It could be somebody your age who is like family to you and who you have to take responsibility for during that. I'm glad you introduced ERGs because, again, we have a lot of people that are listening that maybe have ERGs who are leading ERGs or responsible for managing the ERGs. Part of this conversation is also, as you said, the company can also have some things and employees don't know about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Because I sat right next to the head of HR when my dad was sick. They knew my dad was sick. At no point did that HR person say, hey, did you reach out to the EAP? They might have some, because it wasn't a topic. You weren't identifying caregiving as something that needs additional support.
Right. And so, organizations and talent and benefits teams are usually sitting in some corner. It's not like, they're front facing and, until I worked on the people side of things as a scientist myself, I didn't even understand there were so many layers, that it wasn't just HR as the label for everything.
Right.
There's the talent, there's the recruiting, there's the rewards and benefits. Right. And most times there's very few of them sitting in a different side of the company. So they are not front facing. And the assumption is that when you were hired, you were given a list of everything that the company offers. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. Nobody went through that 1,000 pages of packets. Right. You only know the things you need when something arises at your in your family. There's a situation that comes up. So ERGs, as an example, I'm glad you brought it up, I think is usually in a great position to help spread the word about your resources, but also to help pull together feedback around what is needed. So two ways, making sure that bringing ERGs into the conversation, educating your ERGs, take these programs to your ERGs to have awareness. I've seen ERGs that organize programs around benefits fair.
Right.
Like, what does our company really offer? What is available for our company? And it's meant to bring all the vendors that the organization hosts together. And then they turned that to, they ended that with a survey that says, is there anything you're looking for here that you couldn't find?
Right.
And even before the fair, ERGs will organize programs where they gather questions from members around who would you like to see? What conversations would you like the company to start, right?
Yeah. And I obviously, I'm not here to plug my product, but one thing that I'm really proud that we are better able to do today is connect within our app your other employee benefits to make them relevant to that user, that employee. By that, I mean, if somebody were to come talk to me and say, I'm going through caregiving, I would be like, oh, your employer has Fidelity. Fidelity has a wonderful webinar series on financial caregiving for another adult or a peer. Oh, you've got, Canopy EAP. They offer this mental health peer texting product that has caregivers as part of that. So you could talk to somebody there. I am better able to tease out the unique aspects of your comprehensive employee benefit package and make it relevant for that user.
Okay. I think we're jumping the gun before I formally introduced, because we didn't want to sell.
No, I'm not selling caregiving. I'm saying
no. Let me ask you the question in a very right way, though, because I think what you're saying is important. So when I first met Candice, for those that are listening, I was at a conference at a fair like this, and you and I ended up spending a long time talking because I said, there's so many apps here. They all look like there's so many vendors here. It seems like over the last 3 years, there have been so many vendors introduced around mental health, resources for employees. But I felt like there was something unique about caregiving itself. I mean, apart from the fact that you and I had a great conversations around care overall. So I wanted to actually introduce caregiving to us. What is caregiving and how does it stand out? What makes it unique among this pool of resources that we have emerging now in terms of resources?
I don't know whether it makes us unique, but where we're trying to go is what I needed and what my team and everybody on my team has been a caregiver needed was somebody to connect the dots for us, almost somebody to tell us what we needed to know 2 weeks, 2 months before we needed to know it, and then help us follow the breadcrumbs to utilize resources, benefits, community services that were available to us that we never would have thought of because we were so in the throes of grief and overwhelm that my dad was dying. Thought leaves the building. And so, and I see this in the employee benefit space as sort of an emerging trend, as we are a benefits navigator. We pick a life event. You want to start a family, and we're going to help you understand all of the benefits that can help you on your fertility journey, whether it's through your health plan or your dental insurance has some great articles on oral health and how that helps the whole body, and bringing things around these most common experiences. And so that is one of the things that Caregiving is trying to do. We compared to the wonderful products, I mentioned a few, Wellbeing, CareLoop, Clio. There are some really, really, really good premium products out there. We are digital only, and that's purposeful. We wanted to have a product that a small to medium-sized business could afford, not just sort of a high-end, I work at Pepsi, yes, I have these great benefits packages. And also, part of the driver behind us having this benefits navigation feature is employers have done a really, really good job of bringing in all these solutions through their health plan and their EAPs and others that provide sort of that counseling and one-to-one connection. So we didn't want to make that redundant. And we wanted to say, okay, if you want to talk to a mental health coach because you're going through caregiving, that is available through your health care plan or your EAP. There, as you said, there are a million ways to dice and slice this population, and what that just causes more confusion.
Right.
So helping people navigate through it. And you made a really good point. There are two times that people are looking at their employee benefits, really. It's when they take the job and when they're forced to go through open enrollment. Well, while 1 in 5 employees is caring for another adult at any given time, it may not be in October or November during open enrollment. And I've completely forgotten about the family care, caregiving benefit in May when I need it. So we try, and I know other organizations out there as well, try to help that employer have fascinating content that reminds people, oh, I am a caregiver, and oh, there is a benefit. Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I love the phrase benefits navigation that you said. I mean, you said benefits navigation, and then you said digital only. I think those are two things that I want people to also take away from these. Is there is a lot that you could start that conversation with your employer if you're going through something. But sometimes that challenge is figuring out who is my employer that I want to start with, right? Is it my HR team? Is it my benefit? This is where ERGs and DEI leaders, who are listening today can be a big help, can be an advocate for these, ensuring that, those FAQs are visible and available for employees. Like, where do I start from to see what my company offers, right? A lot of people don't think of the company first. All they think about is time off. Right. You're thinking,
and FMLA or I don't want to tell my supervisor that my mom fell, because if my work performance, diminishes for a little bit, I might get fired. There's so many, the taboos that we had as women about being pregnant and then having small children are now coming to not being pregnant, but having elderly parents or a husband or a partner that had a stroke and needs additional care. And we don't want anything increasing that wage gap that we're already facing.
Like anything, giving everybody that assumption that I can't do my job because well, guess what? Whether you like it or not, whether you bring it up or not, is impacting you because you are a person first, and you care about people around you. So, so for ERG leaders, for DEI leaders, bringing this conversation to the forefront, and then bringing the resources to the forefront for your members as well. Make sure that the questions that members are asking around caregiving is being presented to the organization, and make sure that, that benefit navigation that needs to happen at your organization, ERG leaders can take the lead on that, right? Like the company can list on the website that we have 10 different tools. Okay, what does that mean to an average person, right? How can that help me? At what point in my life can I tap into some of these resources, and how can it be helpful? Because again, the conversations around care is one that impacts everybody.
Absolutely. In fact, there's a statistic out there, I can't name the source, but outside a school teacher, the first individuals to know that there is something going on in the private life of somebody is a coworker, right? They hear you on the phone trying to navigate a health insurance plan. And so having awareness at all levels, from your coworkers to your supervisors to your executives, of this topic as an opportunity to forge connection and to rise to the occasion to support that family or that employee, it's vital. So when we talk about CAREGIVEN as an employee benefit, everybody is, what is the ROI? The absenteeism, presenteeism. And we often say, but the value on investment of it, investing in these individuals who are going through a care journey is immeasurable, because they're learning conflict resolution, they're learning budget management, they're learning how to have difficult conversations, they're learning time management, they're bringing all of the soft skills back into the workforce. So they are absolutely the people you want to invest in during this this care journey. So I'm quite passionate about this topic. Sorry.
I always say if you can't support your employees through a phase in their life, maybe you don't deserve to retain them in the
Right.
first, on the other side of things, because retaining is not just, having them cruise through and delivering results for your organization. It has to do with how willing and how able are you to support them when they have critical life needs, which can happen to people during childbearing, adoption, parents being sick, different things can come up at different points in time. And part of being an employer who is inclusive, who is providing benefits, is being able to, okay, here is what's happening. How can we support you and help you navigate this? And then learn from that encounter to make sure that your benefits are tightened, so that people in the role of giving care are supported in every way, even in the workplace, and understanding that quitting is not the only option. Right. Like quitting my job because of this season is not the only option. So thank you so much, Candice, for taking the lead on this conversation and helping us, just to really understand more of why this is a broader topic. And anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Just if anybody wants to reach out, I'm not going to sell you. I want to be your partner in addressing this pain point with your organization, and helping people find the right resources and avenues to support their employees, because, and it's all for selfish reasons, had the conversation been happening when I was going through it, it would have made the difference for me. And, I still have my mom is still around. And so I'm going to be going through it again at some point in the next 20 years. And so knowing that there is a community of support and it is at my employer, really, it helps tremendously. So,
yeah. No, thank you, Candice. And yes, please reach out to her if you are in that spot where you're trying to navigate the benefits available in your organization, or that you want to make available before we start getting to that Q4, when conversations are actually happening around enrollment. What should we be doing, and what is the I love that, Candice, you shared a lot of names. There are different things out there. The challenge is, which one do we need?
Exactly. Right. What best meets the needs of our team.
Exactly. And that's where she excels. So beyond having one platform, is helping to have the deep conversations around what is needed and what you need to provide to your employees. And if you're leading ERGs, leading conversations around these, I hope this has been helpful to give you some context as you ask the right questions and you get the feedback from your employees and provide these to your benefits team as well at your organizations. Thank you, Candice. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the hot days. I don't know. I feel like it's hot everywhere in the US right now.
Not here.
And outside.
I'm in Portland, Oregon. It's gray. Surprise.
It's gray?
Yes, it's gray. It's okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Can I have some gray right now? Thank you, Candice. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.